All right. Welcome to the Ultra High Net Worth Clients Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Broadhead. We started this podcast as a way to create a central resource of the best financial advisor practice growing tips shared by the most outstanding advisors in the industry, of which our guest today is definitely one. These outstanding financial advisors agree to be on the show and provide a ton of value for free, all in the hopes that our audience might learn from their words. My father was an advisor, and financial advisors are the main client we serve, so my marketing agency's mission is to help every financial advisor grow their business in an effort to help the world become more financially secure. Today, we have the rare pleasure of talking with an incredible financial advisor, Chad Hufford. Chad, can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you?
Chris, well, appreciate you having me on the show. It's a pleasure to be here. And I'm the founder of Veritas Wealth Management, founded up here in Anchorage, Alaska about 17 years ago. And we've got my wife and I both born and raised here in Alaska. We have 6 kids. My wife homeschools them. We've got 16 down to 4, so they keep us busy. And that was a huge part of how, or I'd say a huge motivation behind how I designed my practice to be able to serve others and to be able to help people make sure they don't run out of money or purpose in retirement, but still keep the work-life balance. I wanted to create something where I owned a business instead of having a business that owned me, and allowing my family to still be the centerpiece of my life. And now my daughter works for me, so it's cool to see the family piece and the professional piece kind of blending. But yeah, that's a little bit about me in a nutshell.
Wow, that's awesome, man. Your daughter's the 16-year-old, I'm guessing?
Yep. Yeah, 16, just started working here this summer. So
Cool.
another step in the evolution of our family, and it's been a cool process. So
Yeah, yeah. That's awesome. Does she want to be an advisor like her dear old dad?
probably not.
Okay.
I mean, as you know, there's so many valuable lessons in dealing with clients and families, walking them through difficult times. I mean, just some
Hmm.
basic customer service stuff, being able to build relationship capital, things that are going to serve her well in whatever she wants to do. She definitely has some entrepreneurial spirit, but I don't think I don't think she's going to follow in my footsteps, but we'll see. I mean, who knows? My dad was in the financial industry, but I got my degree in biochemistry, but ended up kind of back where he left off. So never know what the
Hmm.
future will hold.
Yeah. Well, let's kick off the interview there. Tell me how you got into this industry and biochem, man. That's not an easy degree.
And that's why I chose it. It was the hardest degree that I could get at the university that I attended, because the plan was medical school, and I wanted to set myself apart, and I wanted to I was building up a really nice resume and getting contacts and getting letters of recommendation from medical school professors to other medical schools, and I thought I had everything dialed in, and my life took a different course. And I thought medicine was my way to help empower people to live a better version of themselves and to create a more abundant life. But it turned out that I was able to use my background in finances to do the same thing. Um, like I said, I grew up in the financial industry, and Chris, one of the things I saw was the the confidence or anxiety that somebody has in their financial life has a ripple effect into every other area of their day, of their month, and their life trajectory. So if you have confidence and clarity, if you are on top of your finances and you're experiencing victory there, that's going to have a ripple effect to the other areas of your life. But the flip side is also true. If somebody is anxious and stressed in finances, the human brain does not compartmentalize stress. So the those fears, those anxieties will start to creep their way into other areas of somebody's life, their health, their relationships. And I just saw how powerful finances and financial planning can be in not just somebody's financial trajectory, but their overall life in general.
Yeah, absolutely. Any specific strategies to help maybe financially worried clients de-stress about finances?
Well, one of the things that we always try to do is get people to come up with clear, measurable goals. When it comes to investing, a lot of people focus just on the investments. They don't really have a plan. And Chris, I tell people all the time that there's a world of difference between somebody who is strategically investing towards a desired objective and somebody who's merely collecting investments. And I think a lot of people today are just collecting investments. And we see this
Mm.
in 401ks because the vast majority of 401ks are in some sort of target date fund, which just goes to show you that there is no plan, there's no strategy. Somebody's just dumping money. And it's great that people are saving. Don't get me wrong. It's better than somebody not saving at all, but it's not super intentional. And the target date one size fits all approach means that it's ideal for nobody. And we want people to have a strategy based on what they are trying to specifically accomplish, have their investments align with a plan that is driven by their long-term goals. So we kind of reverse engineer the process. And what that does is during times of uncertainty, it gives people something to focus on other than the wild gyrations of the stock market and their funds and it gets them to focus on something with more purpose because the investments are just the tools. That's what we use to build our financial house. But the financial house is what gives us security and sustainability and what protects us, gets us to the point where hopefully we no longer need a paycheck and we can live comfortably without a job. And the investments are just a means to an end. But when you don't have a plan, when you don't have a blueprint, you're usually left just looking at the tools, and that can be a very frustrating and sometimes nauseating experience.
Absolutely. So, you currently hold an interesting distinction for this podcast. You're a first advisor outside of the continuous U.S. You are located in Alaska, outside of Anchorage, if my research is correct.
That's right.
Um, what is it? What is it like building a practice in Alaska? Are most of your clients Alaska natives as well? Give us a little insight there.
Most of my clients have some sort of Alaska connection. We work a lot in the oil field, and we also work with a lot of law enforcement. So both of those those niches are pretty tight communities. So we have a lot of people, and obviously oil. You got a lot of folks in Texas and Louisiana and uh, New Mexico. So we have people spread out, but there's usually some sort of Alaska connection. Not always. There's people who maybe hear me on a podcast or read my book or find us on the internet and reach out. We've got some of my advisors also have places outside. We've got one of my advisors, they've got a home in California. So, I mean, people connect with different ways, but it's often a referral or they used to work in Alaska or they're working with somebody who was from Alaska, but we work with folks all over the United States. But yes, I did start out mostly working with Alaskans, but Zoom and Teams and podcasts and everything else it really helped me expand that. And the other part of it too is Alaska is not the easiest place to retire. It is, I mean, it's obviously very remote. I mean, we've got a 3.5 hour flight to Seattle just to start a trip. I mean, you're waking up at 5 in the morning to catch the early flight just to get down to SeaTac Airport to start your journey to wherever your ultimate destination is. And I mean, it's cold. I mean, right now it was like 2 degrees driving in.
Wow.
That's not super fun you're if you're retired and you're not going to a job every morning and you're just waking up and it's dark and that can wear on people. So we have a lot of folks that end up retiring out of state or they're here for the bulk of the year but leave during the winter months, break up the winter, doing kind of the snowbird thing. So it's nice to be able to be flexible and not to be so geographically isolated because that was a challenge getting started. I mean, Alaska, just to give you some perspective, a lot of people don't realize this, but Alaska has less than one person per square mile.
Oh, wow.
So we've got about 700,000
Wow.
residents in
Hmm.
Alaska in a state that is 3/4 of a million square miles. And if you were to stretch out Alaska tip to tip from Southeast Alaska out to the Aleutians, it would span basically the entire width of the lower 48. So you just think of without technology how difficult it is to
Yeah.
manage people spread out over that wide of an expanse.
Wow. Wow. And you obviously are from there, you grew up there, so this, the short days, the long days, the cold mornings, these are all, normal for you.
Yeah, they're normal, but I don't know if I ever get used to them. I was actually just in
Yeah.
Florida at a conference, and one of the folks, one of the attendees, found out I was from Alaska, and people were kind of not complaining. It was a great conference, but the I don't know why they do this in warm places, but they keep the conference room super cold. It seems like
Yeah.
because it's extra warm outside. It's like they got to make it extra
Yeah.
cold.
To keep you awake,
Maybe it's
maybe?
to keep
Yeah.
people awake. That might be what it is.
Yeah.
But somebody was kind of lamenting how cold it was, and everybody's like bundled up in these jackets. Like, oh, you're from Alaska, you're used to this. I'm like, yeah, but it's still cold. I still like to be warm. So, yeah,
Yeah.
I was in Florida a couple
Yeah.
weeks ago, Texas last week, and then we've got a family
Hmm.
Hawaii trip coming up. So, man, I like to be warm like everybody else, but no, it's a beautiful state. It's a wonderful place to live. And, a big part of what we do professionally is help people build independence, to have more freedom and autonomy in their life. And I
Hmm.
think Alaska has a tendency to attract people who value that more than the average individual. I think everybody values that to some degree. Like nobody wants to be told what to do, and everybody would love to get to a point where they no longer need their paycheck anymore. But I think Alaska it is still the last frontier. I mean, it is
Hmm.
still wild. There's there's a sense of that wildness and that pioneer spirit, I think, in people more than maybe in other places. So I think it's been a good fit, just because that drive and that intentionality around creating independence is maybe a little higher here than it is in some other spots.
Hmm. Wow. Wow. Um, yeah, so I did an Alaska cruise in middle school, and it was like one of the most spectacular uh views I think you can have in life. It sounds like you and your family are pretty big nature enthusiasts. You guys get out and explore. I grew up in Florida, but obviously went skiing out west a bunch. My dad was an advisor, so we would have like he would have conferences out there or just Raymond James ski trips. What's the skiing like in Alaska? Is it pretty? It's got to be amazing, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure if you're more cross country or downhill, but it's both here. I mean, we have trails
Yeah.
right around our house. So you mentioned we kind of live on the outskirts of Anchorage.
Hmm.
So I mean, we overlook the city, and it's right outside our door. There's ski trails, and you don't have to go very far before you are really into what feels like completely untouched wilderness, which is really cool. And then about an hour away, there's some world-class downhill skiing. And there's places that are closer, but um, there's yeah, some absolutely fantastic skiing, and then there's the backcountry stuff, which I've never done because honestly, Chris, I'm not much of an Alaskan when it comes to the winter sports. I didn't grow up. I didn't play hockey. I didn't do
Hmm.
much skiing, a little bit of snowboarding, but then you have people that do this backcountry stuff where I mean and it gets pretty dangerous because you're getting
Oh
back
yeah.
in there, and if something goes wrong. I mean, I'm not sure if you're familiar with like heli skiing, where literally
Hmm.
people dropped off by helicopter. Other people will just hike back in there and ski. And I mean, you can get to places that very few folks have ever been to. I mean, it is really rural and rugged. It's pretty amazing.
Wow. Wow. That's great. So are you do you like to hike? Do you hunt? Playing sports with the family? What's keeping you busy? That aspect.
Well, 6 kids keeps us busy and other stuff. No, we're the family's really into sports.
Hmm.
Basketball season just started for us. We ended football season. Football is the main obsession in our house.
Hmm. Hmm.
Our 4 boys absolutely love it. We actually just had an Eagles game, Eagles and Cowboys, a couple weeks ago. So some of the kids, that was their first NFL game. That was a great experience for them. And yeah, the kids are growing up skiing, which again I didn't really do, but they are. And just yesterday, they picked up their new gear because kids grow, and you buy it all for them, and then next season it doesn't fit.
Yep.
So they got all new gear yesterday, and we don't have, even though it's been cold, we don't have a lot of snow yet. So the everybody's waiting. It's kind of one of those things where like, man, if it's this cold, there might as well be snow so we can get out and do some things. Um,
Yeah.
but but no, the kids are all super active. I mean, we try to really espouse a not just financial fitness but physical fitness in our life and in our
Hmm.
family, and seeing both of those as key pillars to an abundant life, and just modeling that for them. And it's fun. I mean, it keeps us busy as parents but keeps us on our toes. And we've got a great team at the house. I mean, everybody chips in, some more than others. Our 4-year old is a bit of a freeloader still, but no, it's a beautiful life. And I absolutely love it, and being able to work with the types of clients that we do, uh, just we work with absolutely fantastic people, Chris, and
Hmm.
it, they value my own family life. Like it's so cool how they protect what we're doing, and actually just finished
Hmm.
a newsletter. We send one out every year, updating our clients on just the behind the scenes stuff, the stuff that they don't necessarily get to see. And some of our clients say that's the favorite thing that they read all year,
Oh, cool.
because it allows them to connect with my family and my kids, and it's just, and vice versa too. I mean, I love sharing with my family the stuff that my clients are doing, and because they see the impact that Veritas is having on other people, and it's just
Hmm.
it's a beautiful way to live life.
Yeah. That sounds like a great reality show, just following your family in Alaska around.
It
I would subscribe on YouTube.
it it would probably be entertaining. No, we have a lot of fun. My clients joke like, "Man, you're a funny writer. Like you always have these great stories." I'm like, "Well, the kids give me a lot of material to work with." So,
Yeah, I bet. I bet.
yeah, it's
That's awesome, man. That's beautiful. You've set up your business in a certain way that it makes it more copacetic with the family, and you're raising this, six kid, two parent family, and an amazing part of our country. It's beautiful, man. I'm excited just to be hearing about it. So that's awesome. Cool. So let's I want to hear more about, you started the business in Alaska. How did you get traction? How did you figure out who you wanted to serve?
a lot of trial and error. So my dad in the 80s and 90s worked with a lot of educators, and when I started, he was mostly retired. But I still had, I had that practical experience of watching what he was doing, even though he was pretty much out of it at that point. So I started with educators, and just to give you a little context too, I was licensed in 2007. I started
Hmm.
really prospecting in 2008, which was a
Hmm.
really, really
Whoa.
hard
Yeah,
time.
what happened? What happened?
Yeah. So, I mean, beginning in 2008, like the wheels were starting to come off, but people didn't know it yet. And by that
Mhm.
fall, that's when you had the Lehman Brothers collapse, and that's when we knew we were in the thick of it. And by 2009, I mean, the sky wasn't falling, it had fallen, and it was mayhem. I mean, there was
Yeah.
the proverbial blood running in the streets. So people were very reluctant, not just to trust some young kid with a biochemistry degree, but to trust anybody. Because I mean, this was kind of at the beginning of this Bernie Madoff stuff coming up. Like we realized
Yeah.
the banking industry had been lying to us and lying to themselves, really, with the derivatives, the mortgage crisis. They were making up products that they didn't know how to handle. Um,
Mm.
it was like, I mean, it was like the Frankenstein monster. They created something that they couldn't control, and there was just so much uncertainty. So it was extremely difficult. And I'll be honest, I would never want to go through that again. I mean,
Mhm.
as a 27-year-old, 28-year-old with a newborn daughter, and again a degree in biochemistry, and I'm walking up to people saying, "Hey, I know you don't realize or you don't know me. I've got no background in this. I've got no pedigree. But how would you like to entrust your family's financial future to me?" Was not a conversation that went super well.
Man.
But I was what I did learn to do. This is something my dad warned me of. He said, you've got a lot of experience in the financial industry from a practical standpoint, even though I didn't have a lot of formal education at that point. But he said you're also very analytical, which you guys probably know from the biochemistry degree. Um, he said that's going to be it's going to be a crutch for you if you're not careful, where you're going to get into the analytics and the graphs and the data and the numbers and all that stuff. And he says that's not going to connect with people. You've got to learn how to connect with stories and get them be able to take something complex and actually simplify it, which
Mm.
is the exact opposite of what a lot of financial advisors, or at least the financial industry, we take the simple and we make it even more complex, unnecessarily so. Well, when you add in the stress and the anxiety and the fear that was so rampant during those times, it forced me to get really, really good at communicating ideas and concepts rather than throwing out facts and statistics. Because, if you're 58 years old in 2008 and your 401k is now looking more like a 201k and you're supposed to retire in 3 or 4 years, I can throw all the charts in the world at you saying, "Oh, it's going to come back. Hang in there. It bounces back. The declines are temporary. Temporary. It. You only lose if you sell." That's all real great intellectual stuff. But when the emotions have taken over, you've got to be able to connect with people at emotional level. So it was trial by fire, Chris. I had to really learn how to connect people connect with them at an emotional level, and for them to borrow my confidence. And that was something that I had to learn early on is I have to be the source of discipline and confidence and perseverance when my clients were starting to lose heart and lose faith.
That's a really powerful term, borrow my confidence. How do you keep your confidence high enough that you can lend it to others?
It's a good question. So number one, it's an overall personal commitment to excellence. So I already told you about, fitness and finances. I think faith is another one of those where if I am pursuing excellence in my faith, in my personal fitness, my personal finances, it allows me to just show up in the world as a better individual. And my clients deserve the best version of me. So I need to take very good care of myself. I need they deserve for me to be at my best every single day. So it starts with that. I do a lot of reading. One of my regrets in my 20s is I was so burnt out with the biochem. I did so much reading in school that I didn't do any other reading or studying. And there was a thought in the back of my head that was like, because I'm done with college, I'm no longer a student. And that was I, I wish I would have had that realization sooner that that doesn't have to be the case. So it's a commitment to being a lifelong student. And focusing my own goals, my own trajectory, is really important. I want to make sure that I'm doing what I'm asking my clients to do. And it keeps me from being distracted by the crazy world around me, looking past the day to day, looking out into the future, where I'm trying to get, who I'm trying to become, and what does that pathway look like to getting there. And it's reading people and being mentored by people who fill me up as well. So I can't fill anybody else's cup if my pitcher is empty. So I've got to connect with people that fill me up. And I've got a handful of people in my life that do a phenomenal job of that. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Nick Murray, the author Nick Murray, but
Mhm.
um, that's somebody I read on a daily basis. And when I really need an extra dose, I shoot him an email and borrow his confidence if mine is ever waning. But I would say those are the big things that I'm doing.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, borrow my confidence. I love that. That might end up being the title or part of the title. Um, awesome. So, you strike me as someone who doesn't give up easily or doesn't ever give up. You you literally you started in this industry and arguably, its lowest point in 100 years. And you made it work and you turned it into a beautiful business for you personally and professionally. Um, I want to talk about, you know, for any advisors listening, how did you maintain, because I'm sure in that moment, like you have a wife, you have a young daughter, you're like, I'll sell my soul just to like put food on the table right now. You want to provide. How did you maintain building a business that you owned that didn't own you while building this?
It required a ton of intentionality. And and that was something that was important because that's what I was asking from my clients. And I think beyond finances, like so many people wake up every day like it's on accident and they live their lives aimlessly. And what we're trying to do is encourage people to live with more intention. And I wanted to build my business that way as well. And I'll be honest, I did not have a passion for this when I started.
Mm,
I had an excitement and I had a lot of interest. And I had a message I wanted to get out into the world. But when I saw the destruction caused by the lack of a plan, the lack of intentionality, and people giving into their own emotions, giving into fear, selling out in 2008, 2009, 2010, even into 2013. I mean, I think equity mutual funds were in net liquidation for I think 5 or 6 years past the bottom of the market. So, I mean, the fear went way beyond 2008, 2009. And what I saw was a tremendous need for what I had. And I'll just briefly touch on a really dark moment for me. So, again, at this point, I was really strongly focused on the educator market, um, working with educators because I had a little bit of a foot in the door. Now it's more blue collar millionaires. Those are the folks we're working with. We still work with some educators, but anyway, I'm at the University of Alaska and I bump into one of my old professors. He's one of the University of Washington Medical School professors, and he was up there for a little while. He said, "What are you doing here?" And I explained that I had a couple of meetings with some of the faculty and helping them align their University of Alaska retirement plan with their own personal goals. And I made it sound real nice and all these different things. He goes, "No, no, no. Why are you here? You should be in residency right now. You have no business doing this. You are a physician. Quit wasting your time with this. You're wasting your time and your talent." And that hit really, really hard. And then I had this like thought in the back of my head, like, why am I doing this? If this is just for the money, I could go be a physician. Like there has to be a greater purpose than this. And I was reminded of my family and I was reminded of the people I was serving. So it forced me to really dig down deeper and identify a much greater why, much beyond just a career. And I think that's the time, Chris, where it turned into a calling.
Wow, that's awesome. You just you kept on the path, kept your eye on the prize. You wanted to serve and to help, and you saw um your future helping far more folks with their finances.
Yeah,
That's
it
great, man.
it wasn't just a job or a business anymore. It became a mission and a ministry. And
Hmm.
then one of the things that came out of that is, as many folks know that have been doing this for more than 2 weeks, one of the hardest things starting a business is prospecting, is
Hmm.
getting on the phone, offering your value to the world, and knowing that most of those people aren't going to accept it, or
Mm.
they want you to sing and dance for them and put on a great show because you're competing against all these other people, and like, I'm meeting with seven other advisors, and I'll let I'll call you back if you're in the running, and it's hard. And so one of the things I had to do early on is gamify prospecting. And
Mm.
I stopped focusing on how many people I could meet with, how many new clients I brought on. I stopped even keeping track of how many people answered the phone. And I started creating my wins based on how many people I reached out to,
Mm.
regardless of the outcome. And what I did is I counted my reach outs, my, if you want to call it, prospecting attempts. I had to have a chance of rejection in order for it to count. So
Hmm.
an email, a postcard, anything passive like that didn't count. It had to be going to somebody's office, had to be calling them on the phone, introducing myself at a luncheon or something like that. And that's how I created my wins. So I mean, I might talk to 25, 30, 40 people in a day and get nothing but no's, or maybe I'll call you back, or they didn't answer the phone, or never call this number again and hang up on me. I don't know. But hey, if I hit my number, that was a win. And I could go home feeling
Mm.
victory in that day, because this business is very much a momentum game. And the calls you make today are not necessarily the ones that are, they're usually not the ones that are putting food on the table. It's it's somebody you talked to 2 years ago that wasn't at a place that needed your services, and now maybe they lost their job, or they're transitioning jobs, or their parents just had an accident and they're questioning their own mortality now, or something. Like, there's usually an incident, and now, like, okay, now I'm ready to have this conversation. So it's really hard to count the wins, count the victories, because it's not a linear thing. So I had to, again, kind of gamify the prospecting part of it. But I think without having that mission-minded focus, I don't think I would have stuck with it long enough to get to that point where I could have 30, 40, 50 rejections in a day and keep on trucking forward.
Your your story is one of insane resilience, my friend. You and I love, you seem to know yourself so well. Like you're obviously like a very you're a great competitor. You played sports. You're like, all right, how do I incorporate, that aspect into this focus? So yeah, that's awesome, man. So you grew the business with cold calls. You got traction. You started realizing that blue collar millionaires were your niche. Is that still how you prospect today, or have you guys? It sounds like you have a podcast. You do some other kind of minor stuff. How does Veritas find clients today?
Well, we partnered with Dave Ramsey's organization about 10 years ago.
Hmm.
We get a lot of people that come through there. Um, and because we've done, and this is not just me, my team has done a phenomenal job serving the families we work with. And because we work in some of those niche areas, like the oil field, like law enforcement, like the university system. Um, People spread the word, and our best clients come from referrals usually. I mean, we get them
Hmm.
from various ways, but those now we have people coming to us. We're not having to beat the bushes. um, I tell my team stories of some of the things that I did early on, and it's just kind of crazy thinking back. Um, but things are much easier now. But it was years and years and years of doing very, very difficult things. And now we have a really good reputation, and our clients are now our best advocates. And what's really cool about it, Chris, is they screen people for us. I've had clients, this is no, just a few months ago, I had a client say, "Hey, you might be getting a phone call from so and so. I just want you to know that I didn't give them your info, and I want to warn you about them." And the person did end up calling, and they were fine. But my point is, like, my clients are so worried about my time and the quality of the business that we do, that they're only typically only referring us other fantastic people. And I just can't tell you what a blessing that is, but it took a long time to get here. We have a lot of speaking opportunities. That's actually where I started getting some traction in some of the
Mm.
school districts and in some of the educational institutions in Alaska, was speaking in groups and sharing my story and sharing my my victories and my struggles, but encouraging people, giving people hope. And again, it's 2008, 2009, where people desperately needed hope. And what it wasn't charts and graphs. It was just like being a source of hope and optimism. And like you said, helping allowing people to borrow my confidence. And that was incredibly impactful, because what it did is allowed other people to experience what I was saying together and realize I'm not the only one. Like, this person had a question just like mine. And this person over here is worried about the same stuff I am. And we started building community around finance. And that's something that's missing. A lot of people do finance on an island. They feel like they can't share it. It's taboo to talk about. And those frustrations and fears just build up. So by being in a group setting and having an engaging time, not just going over dry stuff, but actually having fun with it, and having real life conversations. And those are things we still do. In a couple weeks, I'll be going to the local police department and talking to them about some financial subjects. And so I love doing that stuff. And again, that's kind of what got our initial traction almost 2 decades ago. And it's still a super effective way of communicating and getting people to join in this journey with us.
Hmm. Awesome. So I love your niche of blue collar millionaires. And I'm always curious, like, what moves the needle, what gets the attention of specific niches, what gets the attention of blue collar millionaires.
Well, a lot of them come through or somehow connect to Dave Ramsey. They hear Dave Ramsey talk, they hear his
Hmm.
show, something like that. If they're not already kind of a part of our network, so to speak, if they're not, they don't already know who we are. But one of our challenges to people, and I don't care if we've got clients who are executives, physicians, attorneys, we've got clients who are electricians and plumbers, and pipe fitters and welders. So um, they all have this courage to be different. And the problem in our world today, Chris, is we've normalized bad behavior, bad financial behavior, bad health decisions. I mean, we are one of the most over medicated, overfed, overspending cultures that's ever existed. And we've normalized it. So, in order to get different results, people have to be willing to take a different path. And people in the trades have a tendency to be willing to do the difficult, mundane things they're not glorious, they're not sexy, they're not exciting, but they're the simple, basic things that go unnoticed that make a huge difference in the long run. So nobody thinks of anything when they flip a light switch and the electricity goes on. Well, our clients are the ones that go repair the transformer when it got knocked down in a snowstorm or a windstorm in the middle of the night. Like the stuff that nobody sees, nobody expects, nobody praises them. They don't get any accolades from it. They just do the things behind the scenes. And that's how wealth is created. And our society worships the trappings of success, the fancy cars, the nice vacations. That's not wealth. In fact, that's the consumption of wealth. Wealth building happens behind closed doors. And our blue collar millionaires are the ones who know that it isn't the flashy, exciting stuff that you do every now and then that wins the day. It's mastering the mundane. It's doing the consistent, difficult tasks day after day, year after year that creates a beautiful life.
Hmm. Absolutely. That is a beautiful sentiment to kind of wind down the show. My final question for you, Chad, and this has been absolutely awesome, man. Thank you so much for taking the time. My final question for you is an open-ended question. You can take it in any direction that you like. And the question is, what are you working towards?
What am I working towards? This is going to sound a little weird, but I'm trying to make myself redundant in the business or work myself out of a job a little bit to work on the business and not in it quite so
Hmm.
much. And we've hired some fantastic team members over the last couple of years. Even just this year, we've added two more, a couple of absolute rock stars that are incredible human beings, not just great advisors and planners. And to be able to duplicate myself in my team. So if anything happened to me, that our mission and our objectives continue on, and to be able to also set myself up to help my kids and the ones that don't want to go into this business, they want to do something else, to be able to partner with them and to have the ability to honestly chase kids and grandkids all over the US. So I never plan on retiring, but building a little bit more of autonomy so I can work from anywhere in the United States, um, and have that yeah, have that flexibility.
Hmm. That's great, man. And continuing the tradition of you know, building the business that you own that doesn't own you.
Exactly.
That's beautiful, man. Yeah. Awesome. And where can my audience find out more about you?
VeritasAlaska.com is our website. The Veritas.Alaska on Instagram, and I'm also on LinkedIn if people wanna find me on there.
Awesome. And we'll be sure to link those in the show notes. Chad, this was awesome, man. You're a fascinating and inspiring advisor, and you're doing some really incredible things. And it sounds like you're just getting started.
Just getting warmed up. Tip of the iceberg. Thanks, Chris. It's been a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, yeah. All right. And to all our listeners out there, thank you so much for tuning in and keep on growing out there, everybody. See ya.